Good evening, everyone. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7:00 p.m. on Tuesday, August 13th, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our township website. Please stand to salute the flag.
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Lucas? Here. Deputy Mayor Sacramento?
Here.
Mr. Stoller?
Present.
Mayor Romano?
Here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the July 16th, 2024 regular Township Committee minutes? May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the July 16th, 2024 special Township Committee minutes? May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the energy aggregation program update.
So just to provide a brief update, there is going to be a additional public information session via Zoom tomorrow evening at 7:30. The information is located on the township's website. The period to opt out, which is a little bit of a misnomer, it has been extended until Monday of next week. The 20th. The other thing is that residents can opt out at any time. Just because there's that sort of deadline does not mean that you can't opt out after that deadline. I know there's been a few questions regarding the program and energy aggregation, community aggregation. We've been answering a few of those at Town Hall, and just understanding that, you know, through the BPU, who regulates these types of programs throughout the state, and of course the other 17 communities that are participating in this particular round of community energy aggregation in the Hunterton cooperative, is that it has to be an opt-out program. It is not permitted to be an opt-in program. So again, Lisa Hibbs from HAEC will be on that Zoom tomorrow night to answer any questions and help residents in any way that they need with that community energy aggregation.
Just say when this ordinance was passed, to put us in there, why it's just happening now?
Yeah, so this all of this sort of started to take place in 2021. And a part of that was, you know, there was, I think, conversation at that time with various groups that wanted to see the township enter into a community energy aggregation program for a few reasons. One is obviously there has to be a savings involved in it, but also there was a desire to be able to offer a green option to residents to procure green energy. This type of aggregation, or, you know, having a different supplier of your energy has been available to residents on an individual basis for a very long time. You could always reach out to a company and say, you know, I'd like to buy my energy from you, and JCP&L will continue to supply, will continue to be your distribution, you know, your line, all of that, your billing agent, all of that. But the actual energy is coming from a different source, whether that be Constellation, IDT, which is in this case the townships. And so, but this is a way, when you aggregate with multiple communities, is a way to find larger savings in that aggregation. Obviously, the energy market has been not great for the last few years, and they have attempted several auctions, but this one was successful in getting a strike rate that was a savings to those communities. Interestingly enough, the township does also aggregate its energy. We do that for all of our buildings, streetlights, things like that. And not shortly after this all took place, we got a call from our representative saying it's time to go out and do our energy aggregation auction as well. So there will be on the September 3rd agenda a resolution to strike a rate, so that when we go out to auction, we have that authorization to do so.
Okay, so we have an update on native habitats by Ms. Perry.
Okay, hello. So I am here this evening, as most of you are aware, to give you an update and to reintroduce, I call it a native plant resolution, but it is the building native habitats resolution. So the resolution was first presented to you on May 7th. At that time, you saw a slideshow. The TC requested that the Environmental Commission discuss the resolution with Tador Whitman from the Cora Hartshorn Arboretum, because discussion had already been held with other stakeholders. I met with Tador. He was very pleased at the prospect of having the native plant resolution. His requests were that we include for him, or him to be able to include, and cultivars and nativars, which I will read you the definition. A cultivar is a plant that has been specifically bred to emphasize specific desirable characteristics. So a native comes about on its own without any human interaction. A nativar is a cultivar derived from native parents and bred for a particular trait. Okay, so they're a deviation from a native, but not a non-native. There's a lot of debate. There are native purists. If you're, talking to people about pollinator gardens, or because in a flower, it could make it so that there are extra petals, but that might make it difficult for whoever the pollinator who specifically likes that flower to go into. So it's a whole, but anyway, that's what Tador wanted. And so we included it. We also said that once a year, we talked about when would he report, the percentage of trees that he planted. And we decided it would be once a year, and that it wouldn't have to be in the resolution or future ordinance, hopefully. The EC passed a revised resolution, which includes Tador's request. And I am going to read you the 2 paragraphs that were changed. So if you should all have your copy. So if you, the 11th whereas paragraph, give me time to get there. Whereas shade trees that provide your urban heat island effect mitigation and other environmental benefits may require non-native, cultivar or nativar species in circumstances deemed appropriate by the township forester or the superintendent of the Department of Public Works, or the Millburn Shade Tree Advisory Board, or the director of the Cora Hartshorn Arboretum and Bird Sanctuary. And then the next paragraph that was changed to accommodate Tador's wishes for the Arboretum is the 5th be it further resolved paragraph. Okay, so be it further resolved, the township shall maintain a target of 70% native species to be used for all new shade tree plantings within a calendar year, with the discretion of variance from this target granted to the township forester or the superintendent of the Department of Public Works or the Millburn Shade Tree Advisory Board or the director of the Cora Hartshorn Arboretum and Bird Sanctuary as individual non-native, cultivar, or nativar species selections may be necessary for placement in environmental conditions unsuitable for a native species so that overall benefits of a healthy and robust township tree canopy may be obtained. Okay, so those were the changes. Moving on a little bit, New Jersey municipalities exist that have already enacted native plant ordinances. Just to remind you, we're not leading the way here. Montclair also has a 70% requirement for trees, shrubs, grasses, ground cover, flowers. Madison has all, Chatham has all, Rahway has 70%, and Mendham has all. But what these municipalities ordinances don't have is the permissive discretion of variance from a target percentage of designated native plants to be planted that we have incorporated into this resolution. So effectively, these paragraphs are a recommendation rather than a mandate. And just to refresh your recollection, a brief summary of the benefits of native plants. They belong in the ecoregion in which they evolve, together with other native plants, insects, birds, and animals, because they have symbiotic relationships that support native species biodiversity and therefore the environment upon which we depend. Their roots are deep, which assists to minimize soil erosion and flooding. Once established, watering is usually unnecessary as opposed to grass lawns and non-native plants, which did not evolve in the ecoregion in which they've been planted and require significant use of water and often a variety of chemicals, which have negative environmental consequences to stay healthy. So the enactment of a municipal native vegetation ordinance aims to restore local biodiversity, conserve water, and reduce maintenance needs, labor, and the money put into chemicals compared to non-native plants, and that it is to help create a healthier community. So there should also be financial savings and water conservation. So the idea is also with native plants to create a larger, more connected plant population base to help ensure that future native plant species are able to migrate in response to climate change. So we want to have enough of them so they're going to survive and make the incremental accommodations that they need to. And they create larger, more connected plant populations to enable pollinators to more easily locate the native plants. Instead of the gardens being so fragmented, there is a big movement to have pollinator pathways to make locating the sources of pollen and nectar more easily accessible for the pollinators and the birds. And it's all up the line. So our municipality, like others before it, has the opportunity to model the practice of sustainable gardening or yard care. Supporting a healthy environment supports a healthy community. There's no doubt about that. In fact, in 2017, the New Jersey Senate and General Assembly enacted a revision to Chapter 41, Title 27 of the revised statutes requiring the Department of Transportation, the New Jersey Turnpike Authority, and the South Jersey Transportation to only use native plants to landscape roadways. And they would achieve benefits such as water conservation and reduction of labor hours, in addition to the benefits that the native plants would provide to the environment. So in recent years, the number of Millburn residents recognizing the need and ease of supporting native species biodiversity in their own yards has been growing. And I can tell you this without hesitation, based on my interactions with residents in my current position chairing the Environmental Commission, in my many years having co-chaired the Green Team, and privately as my neighbors always stop when I'm working in my yard to ask me questions. And I'm always very happy to share plants and give them whatever education they are up for at the moment. So the Environmental Commission strongly recommends and respectfully urges that after you have the appropriate discussion of this Building Native Habitats resolution, the Township Committee move to consider the enactment of a Building Native Habitats ordinance. That is the end of my prepared words. If you have any questions.
Thank you. I think before we have questions, can we hear from Mr. Doty so that we could just, is that right?
So if you have questions directly from Mr. Doty.
Yeah. Mr. Doty, our Superintendent of Public Works. Thank you. And then if anybody has any questions.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to speak tonight. Thank you for Renee, all your hard work all through the years, and the Environmental Commission, Shade Tree Advisory Board Commission, and all the above. As you know, I'm Tom Doty, the Superintendent of Public Works. I've worked for Millburn for over 20 years. 16 of those were forester, among any other thing that came along in DPW, from leaves to trash, whatever. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I'm still a current certified tree expert, state of New Jersey, certified arborist, certified forester, so I keep all the certifications, just so you're aware. So we basically have no problems with the overall idea of this ordinance, but just some of the questions and some of the concerns that Stacy Phelps, our forester, she apologized, she couldn't be here tonight, so you're stuck with me. So just some of the items that we wanted to talk about, and just when vast experience with the New Jersey strike team, I go back with them for 20 years. Michael Van Cleef, who's actually one of the co-sponsors, writers that I talk to quite often. He and I don't always agree. So one of the items on the second page, it's the fourth paragraph down, where it states invasive species defined as those species listed on New Jersey invasive species strike team, don't plant list, are hereby banned from future procurement on use on public lands. So I'm concerned with that word banned. Just when you look at their list of trees that they have listed, one of them is a Japanese maple. And why the intent of this list was created from when I was involved was for the aggressive non-native cedars. So plants that would grow out of a planting bed and then establish themselves, say in Old Shore Hills Park. So that was the extent of this list. But again, we always, don't agree on everything. So one of the trees is a Japanese maple, which drive around Short Hills. Most yards have Japanese maples in them that were planted. And yes, can it seed, but you don't see it aggressively seeding. You can't find it that I've seen in Old Short Hills Park or the Okie tract. You just don't see it happening mainly because we're such a highly urbanized area. Another one of the trees is called a Weeping Higgins cherry, which is another ornamental cherry tree. That same content goes along with that. Another one is they call it a Chinese elm, but it's also known as a lace bark elm, which is a very ornamental, nice tree. And the last one is the Japanese Zelkova, which, if you do the history of it, people wanted as a replacement for the American elm, because the American elms mostly are dead, except for ones that we unfortunately use chemicals in to keep alive. So that was one of the words that I think we have a concern with, and not that we plant a lot of those trees, but if the opportunity came up, we feel that the word banned is too strong. So in the next paragraph down, it says, be it further resolved, deer resistant native plants, in my opinion, and I'm just stating my opinion right now, is that doesn't exist. And what I mean by that is, if you go out in the woods or any place that has trees and understory on it, where you'll find a lot of the non-native invasives like Japanese barberry, deer will even eat that with thorns. And the problem being is the population of deer, and that's across the state of New Jersey. So that's just, it's hard to, and I get it's in text and educational things and like that, but it's a challenge. So if you don't manage the deer, or if you don't fence it off completely, they're gonna eat it. They'll chew even the American holly just because they're so hungry. That's just another item. And then, our biggest issue is the percentage, and the 70%, because from my experience, and again, with the ideal of this, we agree, but here's the challenge. When you have a highly urbanized area, and I'm just going to use Milburn for example, where the street tree planting strips are literally 12 inches wide to 3 feet wide, and you have a 40-foot power line over your head. So when you look at the list of native trees, a lot of them want to grow 80 feet tall. You don't have to be a forester to understand that Jersey Central will come here every 5 to 7 years and prune those trees. And the minute we tell them not to, there's a state statute with the BPU that tells them if we stop them, we can be liable for the outages and the damages. So there's nobody that's going to do that. So when you look at the native list, it's a hard challenge to try to get trees that will fit in these restrictive planting spaces to grow successfully, because that's what we're about. We're about keeping the forest alive and healthy and diversified. So I'll just, real quick, when you look across the street from that planting strip, and you have another 12-inch to 3-foot wide planting strip, now you got the wires coming from those poles to the houses. And remember, you're trying to plant a larger tree now over there. And you have to look down and you have the sidewalk, and then you have to look for the natural gas, public service electric and gas in the ground. You can't plant there. You look over here in the ground, you see New Jersey American Water, you can't plant there. And then you look a little back further in the lawn and you have a sewer line. So it's very challenging with what we do to try to manage trees in those areas. And if I just stuck to the native tree planting list, and thank you for the exceptions, we're basically gonna be planting serviceberry and redwood underwires. So we need the diversification of trees to maintain a healthy forest. So, you know, when you talk to the New Jersey Shade Tree Federation that manages and works with all the municipalities across the state of New Jersey, they say use to the greatest potential that you can for a native tree, which we're fine with. So what we've said is the forester, and obviously what I still do today, is our compromise, which we worked with Ellen, and is the 50% is what we feel would be appropriate. Now that's just for street trees in those areas. Planting in parks, we have ample room. You can plant walnut trees, and I have examples of their fruit in there that are the size of tennis balls. So there's a lot of items that you have to think about when you put a tree in a certain area so that it'll grow. So that's just one quick concern that we have. And I believe, you know, just the last item that I have is, it's the third to last paragraph. And I'm just cautious, as curious as to why is, you know, it says the Environmental Commission, by the way of annual memo to the Township Committee, should review the above exceptions and procurement percentages annually and make recommendations to the Township Committee for changes. We have a Shade Tree Advisory Board that's specifically there to work with myself, the forester, other people to oversee, plant any trees and shrubs on township property. So in my opinion, that's again my opinion, that would be the job of the Shade Tree Advisory Board, which I have no problem with them doing the initial review. That's what they're there for. They're all appointed by council. And then if they want to give that information to the Environmental Commission to give back to the Township Committee, that's fine. But I was just curious as to why another layer of review or government is needed when we already have a 5-member board doing that. So that's basically what I have, and what I've done with some of these are old, so bear with me, but I had the books available. I'm giving each one of you, I think I got enough or close to enough. There's a little bit of homework here, and what there is there's a book, and I'll keep that. There's examples of the pests, and again, a lot of these pests are non-native that are attacking trees, and we have to use chemicals to keep the trees alive. But there's a brand new one right here, which one of my other favorite trees beside the sugar maple is the American beech tree, which of course is a native tree. And to let everyone know, there's a new disease called beech leaf disease, which is affecting all of the American and European beech trees in the Northeast and beyond. And it's basically a soil nematode, which is a microscopic worm that gets into the tree, goes up into the buds, and produces millions of worms in this bud. And when the leaf opens, it basically destroys the chlorophyll in the leaf. So it literally is killing all of the beech trees. So, and it is here in Short Hills. It's already confirmed. We're already getting calls. So that is another challenge when we just stick to the native trees. We have issues, and it's a challenge to try to keep these trees healthy and alive. And there's others in here called, you know, I don't have to explain to you the emerald ash borer. So we can take the ash tree off our native list because they're all dead, except for the ones that we treat to keep alive. And then, you know, Dutch elm disease, right? Everyone's probably heard of that. That's another one that's been here since the 1930s, which is another non-native fungus that was brought over here. But we have alive elm trees in town. prior to my coming was from the TBL. They paid private companies to treat them. And I've actually taken that over and now Stacy's running with it. So we spend money on treating those trees, like the huge one at Taylor Park. Diane knows that tree, to keep alive. So the other ones are bacterial leaf scorch, which is killing all the oak trees. And there's another new one that's coming called oak wilt. And there's a little article in the back about native and planting, and then some of the problems with native tree species that we have. And I just, as an example, I was out riding my bike on Saturday on Clinton, New Jersey, where I live. And, it's not isolated. This is bacterial leaf sport. So this was a healthy oak tree that is about, 40 inches in diameter, that 3/4 of the canopy looked like this leaf. So what happens is this fungi affects the leaves and they end up dying. And then every year when that happens, it ends up killing the tree. So that's the challenge that we have with the native issues with street trees. So park trees or open spaces, we have no argument or no discussion with. So I'll leave that with Christine.
Thank you.
I have 5 copies, hopefully.
Thank
If I need more, I'll make more.
Questions?
Yeah.
First of all, Ms. Barry, thank you for talking to Theodore at the Arboretum. I was thinking requested that, and I'm glad that that'll work. One thing reading here, I just found confusing is in the first be it resolved, it says, as well as the township will require that at least 70% of newly procured plants, and then it goes on to say, as well as trees used in public places be native. But then further down, it says in the be it further resolved, it says the township shall maintain a target of 70%. So I was confused because that didn't seem consistent. It's either required to be 70% or a target of 70%.
I think if it's a target of 70%, that should allay Tom's concerns because you might not meet the target. If 50% is the best you can do, you strove for 70%. So therefore, I think a lot of what you're concerned about is potentially moot if it's written as a target of 70%.
The first part says it's a hard requirement.
It
Right.
doesn't conform, it doesn't
So-
conform.
Which is your whereas?
So the first
We're
be it
making it into an
resolved, and now
ordinance, we can
therefore be
fix
it
that.
resolved, that first one says will require that at least 70% of newly procured plants and trees be native. But then further down, it says a target, so.
And Frank, I would personally rather start at 50 that I know we most likely can achieve versus starting at 70 and failing right off the bat. So,
You're not gonna get a report card on this.
well,
so-
it's
No.
antics. I mean, we wanna be successful. And if it's going to be annually reviewed, ordinance can be revised. So that's just, I hear what you're saying, but again, 50%, we can strive to do that. I think,
Well, I think we
can
can
achieve
work,
that.
I think we can work with you as we develop the ordinance. There can be some back and forth.
That was gonna be my
I
suggestion.
think we should move this forward. I know the environmental commission's been working on this for quite some time. There's a number of other towns that have similar ordinances, and I think that we on the dais should take action to move this forward so we can get a draft ordinance that we can review, with Tom and whomever else we need to review it with, and with the EC, of course. That way we have some forward movement on this.
I,
What is the township, what's their target now? Is there, how are you guys dealing with this?
right, so it's, 45% is an average for canopy cover that we're achieving, so there has been no goal for natives. We try to fit the right tree in the right spot, so it can be successful. Now, again, none of us will most likely be here, but we're looking at 50 to 100 years. When you look at the big pin oaks down on Undercliff Road, the ones that are left, those are 80 to 100 years old. So, that's what we're striving to do, to keep trees alive for the long run. So we've had no, goal to plant X percentage for native. Again, if we're in Short Hills and there's 60 feet of lawn with no sidewalk, I plant white oaks. I love the tree, right? We still plant sugar maples, even with all the risks. We still do that where we have enough soil volume so the tree will live. You know, that's the deciding factor. It's if you want to reduce it to, you know, planting in your garden, that's basically the same for a tree. So the more soil volume you have, the healthier tree and the longer it will live. So.
you know, Tom, thank you for the analysis. Renee, great job bringing this forward. I really do believe that, you know, this needs to continue the momentum that's in place today. It does seem that the DPW, as well as a few other parties, the Forester and Arboretum, do have the power to, or it seems like full discretion, really, to you know, to do what they please. The two things I would think need to be fixed are conforming language for Mr. Cohen's needs to conform, that it needs to conform to say that. The second part is in the spirit of compromise, the 50%, you're saying it only pertains to street strips, which are below power lines, correct?
Street it's usually between the curb and the sidewalk. That's the area.
Right.
So if there's no sidewalk, then we automatically try to put bigger trees unless, you know, and again, someone comes out and says, I want this specific tree and it's gonna die if you don't. So there's all kinds of scenarios where that comes up. So
Right.
it's the planting strips, if you will.
So is there a specific reason that would not fall under the great measure of discretion that you have across the tree strips to say, hey, well, it's 80 feet, there's the power lines, they have to come every 5 years, we're gonna create a liability for the town. I'm just trying to understand why it should be parceled out separately.
Because it's a challenge to use just the native tree planting list
Oh,
for that reason. It's number one, you remember Tim Gordon, everyone. His favorite tree was a sassafras tree, which has a mitten and that's the shape of the leaf and and it turns flame orange in the fall. I love the tree, but you can't find one to plant as a street tree. They just don't grow. So it's all of these effects that
right, but
challenge
the
that.
point I'm kind of making is if you're limited to if you're held sternly to 70%, you got to do 70%. I can understand taking that part down at 50% or even 40%, maybe 30%, whatever the case may be. But what I read by the letter is that you have full discretion at your fingertips to plant as you see fit, which I heard was, and I'm sure I hope it's true, is that Rahway, Madison, Chatham, and other places do not give that discretion to the other parties, the DPW, the Forester, the Arboretum, and their similar analogous parks. So I'm just trying to understand why if we did, I guess, pair that out, what the benefit would be.
To achieve that goal successfully. That's basically it. And it comes from what's available to plant in those certain areas.
Right, but couldn't the forestry, the DPW say, hey, we have our own internal goals 50% due to these different reasonings and hold that line? I just want to understand it because, and I think it's a great thing to move forward, but it seems like they've given you 100% discretion.
Well,
Yeah,
and again,
and
as
also
long as it's
goals-
not required,
Yeah.
then that's not an
Yeah,
issue.
yeah, and that has to be fixed. Right
Yes.
now, it is required in that first bullet.
I also agree
Goals
we
are
should
something
start.
you should strive to, right? So the goal should always be a little bit above what you actually think you're going to achieve now, because if you put some effort into it, you might actually, be able to get closer to the goal. So I think this gives very wide latitude. I mean, I couldn't, make it any looser without completely negating the point of it, right?
Mhm.
So, I think what's here with some minor tweaks would give you guys the latitude you need to do what you need to do, while still setting goals that I think are going to be helpful for the town to use as guidelines as we strive to get more native entities.
And I think as we discuss it, there may be opportunity to pull out and say, hey, you know, in certain cases, if we need to identify the land strips, whatever, maybe we can. But it needs to be conforming language and you need to have the discretion to do what's best for the town from a liability side and a economic.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, no, I just want to thank you both. Thank you for your expertise, and Renee, thank you for your passion and everything that you do. I'm fine with tweaking the language, like we said. 70 just to me is a little high. I would just like to see us start at 50 and then see what happens. I mean, we could be very successful at 50, but I just think to start at 70 is just a little. Bit of a
We're
reach,
already at
that's all.
50, so maybe
Well,
let's
no,
start
not
at
really. That's
60.
not what he said.
We said 45.
No, we're not. Well, no, I think he
Well,
said.
and again, that's a generalization.
Yeah.
As an example, when I repaired Gilbert Place, 300 feet of the stream bed, we planted over 6,000 live tree stakes. So it's, in street trees, it's an average. So some years it's a lot more than that.
Right.
A lot of years it's 40-ish.
And let's not conflate the issue. It doesn't seem that Tom has a problem with the 70%. It's the piece on the strip that's the problematic piece. So striving for these, to attain these, I think is a great thing. So if we haven't heard back from the Arboretum or from the forester or from Tom that 70% is not doable, I think it might be a great compromise just to talk about that land strip. But, we have plenty of time to negotiate this, arbitrate it, et cetera, so between us.
Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, so just one point on this too is that this will actually result in the drafting of 2 ordinances. One of them will be for the zoning code, as one of them is requiring that there be review of the site plan to make sure that there's 70%, right, on a commercial property or a multifamily residential, correct? So
Where,
It says that.
it says the township shall require 70% of plants to be
Yes.
native when specified for planting, when a
oh, yes,
landscape
yes,
plan
yes,
is
yes,
required,
yes,
right?
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, so that will have to be written into the land use, and then there would be a separate ordinance on this. One of the things that I think, and obviously we'll all be working together on this and drafting this, is just figuring out, like, with an ordinance, where this lives in our code, and whether this is, because usually when you do an ordinance, it's something about it is enforceable, right? Like the township is required, if we build a new building, to be LEED Silver certified, that is to your point, a goal. We're gonna do that. I don't know whether we are able to deviate from that. So that's just something that, I think as we go through this process, we'll figure out exactly how that works and where that lives in the code. So I just wanted to make sure that you understood it's gonna end up being two ordinances.
And then this other thing that Tom mentioned, there's a lot of should be's and at discretion of, et cetera, but then we use the word banned. I find it difficult to ban anything in the context of trees. I need to understand what I'd like to understand more about.
Invasive species.
I understand,
That's, yeah.
but if you have a spot come hell or high water that you can't grow anything but one of those, he's not at that spot. I just don't understand why we would ever use that invasive species in that spot. And maybe you can answer it, Tom.
Yeah, again, so it's interpretation with everything else. This is a group of plants that a lot of very smart people go out and come up with this list that they want to see. And the difference is with the DOT, most of that, they have a lot of room to put a lot of trees in versus a 12-inch planting strip.
The
So,
reason I brought that up was just that it's in the spirit of sustainability.
correct,
And this is where government is going and should go and should model. That's
right,
why I brought it
but
up.
again, these
Not
are
that they have room for it.
these are the challenges. So it's something we can discuss further another time, I believe, so.
Okay.
Mhm.
So do we need to make a motion to have the
To draft.
ordinances drafted for review? So
Everyone wants to stay with 70. You don't want to come down to like 50.
Well, that could change.
let's
What we
let's
draft.
yeah, let's see the draft.
Okay.
And then we can discuss it, if it's drafted in such a way that it covers the areas where they think they're gonna need to deviate, well, then the 70% might be fine if you have a separate carve out. So let's see how that's drafted. So I will make a motion that we have the administration go forward and draft the 2 ordinances for the
No.
township committee review.
I'm happy to second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamanni?
Yes.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment. Oh, no, we didn't, we skipped
Skip
reports.
the rest of the reports.
Oh, did I jump over? Oh, I'm sorry.
You did the
Reports.
energy aggregation, but
I
you
have
didn't give anybody else a chance.
I
to
skipped
speak.
all over. I'm sorry. Reports. Deputy Mayor, you would like to go first?
Sure. So the only report I have is the Environmental Commission is going to be having meetings on the Open Space Trust Fund ballot initiative. They're gonna be having one in September and October. You should check the township website for those dates. Definitely something you should inform yourselves about because it's a fantastic opportunity for our town to begin gathering funds that we can use to purchase space that can be used for recreation, can be used to, help protect against overdevelopment. So there's a lot of positives. So definitely attend one of the information sessions if you can. Those are the only reports I have for now. We will have our attorney give a affordable housing update later tonight.
No reports.
Committeeman Stoller?
Sure. I got all these meetings, so I'm gonna actually go through them. I have to go through them. Recreation Committee, last call for fall program registration, soccer, flag football, volleyball, other programs. The Tour de Millburn is returning on September 8th. Registration is still open if you wanna get your bike out. And the pool has had over 28,000 visits so far. It's been a hot summer, so it's quite a few. The Special Improvement District, SID, they're having a end of their 4th anniversary party on Thursday, August 22nd, here at Town Hall. Town Hall Plaza, I've seen a lot of people out at Town Hall Plaza as we've done the live music and food for sale. It's been a resounding success. Seeing a ton of people out there. Everybody seems to be having fun as we collect data and look at the future of the Town Hall Plaza. And there's actually been some requests to keep it open later, which we're reviewing. We've had some inclement weather, which has closed it down on a couple weekends. Family movie night is Wednesday, tomorrow. The event starts at 7 p.m. They're showing Top Gun Maverick. They're also gonna have s'mores for the kids. Then on August 21st, Kids Chalk and such. And they're having a Kids Glow Crazy party, which is September 1st. The free website and social media services has been fantastic. Over a dozen local businesses have received these services, the free website and social media services. You can go to Explore Millburn Short Hills and request it if you want and look at them, and they're just fantastic. And then the storm preparedness kits is the resource tab is now available. BOE liaison, I spent a lot of time with the BOE, understanding what's going on. Right now, there's just 2, they're closed, it's quiet, but they're still in the midst of the superintendent search. Everybody did the online survey and made their pitches, and then the 2 unions on they're still working with the 2 new unions on contracts. There's been no update or really progress there, unfortunately. Joint fields, no updates. Emergency dispatch, no substantive updates. We are bringing in a consultant to look at moving to Summit's fire headquarters for that. We're having a flood mitigation meeting tomorrow morning at 8:30, which I'll get more clarity. It seems that we had no overwhelming from the floods or from the quite a lot of rain. There's a lot of water, but it doesn't look like anything was destroyed and the pumps were working. Affordable housing, I'm going to defer to our council, and that's it. Thank you.
Committeeman Cohen?
Sure, I have a few things. First of all, the Arboretum is getting ready to plan its annual cornhole throwdown event, which will be on September 22nd Their registration is open. It'll be held at the train station by the boxcar. It was a lot of fun last year, and they'll be doing it again. It's an elimination tournament, and it's a fundraiser. All of the proceeds go to rebuilding the forest in the Arboretum. On Saturday, I attended a CPR class that was held by the Milburn Short Hills Volunteer Ambulance Squad. It's an unbelievable place and what they do. The class was excellent. It was at capacity. They had one the week before also at capacity. So they're considering holding some additional sessions in September and October. And I would encourage everybody to attend, because you never know what's going to happen when you're, when you're in a public place or even at home with a family member. I also attended a couple of weeks ago a session with our state legislatures held by the American Jewish Committee, discussing the growth of anti-Semitism in the community and the nation as a whole. They talked about the work that they do and highlighted that they've encouraged various towns, which we already did, to pass a resolution that defines anti-Semitism, which we did last year. The important thing, in addition to that, was that it also there was also 2 sessions of police training to help the police identify events that are anti-Semitic and how to respond to them. And per the AJC, the training was a huge success, and there were representatives from all the other towns in the legislative district. They were encouraging those that had not already done that kind of thing to do that. And then lastly, today, the Historical Society had their open house, which I attended. I know some of you were there as well. They were showing that they had a bunch of projects that were done by the high school interns. It was totally interesting. There's a ton of material that they have in their facility, and they're looking to have regular hours again starting in the fall. They'll probably be open every other Sunday or something. And when they do that, we'll certainly publicize that. And I would encourage everybody to just drop by us at the Short Hills train station and take a look at all the historical relics that they have in the facility.
It was pretty amazing. Thank you. Just a couple things. The Essex County Mobile Health Mobile was here at the library last week. They provided 24 health screenings. The Commission of the Blind was there, representatives from RWJ Barnabas Health. And I just wanted to give a special thanks to the Senior Citizen Coordinator, Jamie Hawkins, and the Library Director for Mike Bannock for helping us to coordinate the event. So it was really great. All of mostly our seniors came out. Agree with Committeeman Stoller. Town Hall Plaza has been a blast all summer. The community has really come together. Great food options, live music. We had a beer garden this past weekend. All the activities have been really outstanding. I just wanted to thank our sponsors, Explore Milburn Short Hills Board Chair Jackie Benjamin Lieberberg, trustees, of course, Committeeman Stoller and Tim Hoffman for his work, the business owners, the merchants, and of course, Steve and Amanda for their dedication and just fabulous events all summer. So to my fellow TC members that haven't been there, please visit. We don't have another meeting before Labor Day. So can we discuss extending the closure? Can we get a consensus now and then we can take care of it at the next meeting? Is that all right? If we have a consensus just to, I don't know.
Well, I think it should be extended. I don't see why there wouldn't be consensus. They had multiple weekends of inclement weather where the bands were not present and the vendors didn't show up. So we can have a discussion, sure. I'm in favor of it.
I am too. I've been there, most weekends. It's really a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun if you haven't been.
It's great. It's a nice environment. You never know who you'll run into, people you haven't seen from town in quite a long time. It's a great community spirit, and I would certainly be in favor of extending it as the weather permits.
Awesome. So we can work on it for the next meeting. I don't know. I don't know like what's involved in planning other events. I don't know.
I mean, I think. Lots change, but-
How, after Halloween,
I think,
Yeah.
you know, you have-
after Halloween.
Right.
Yeah,
that makes
agreed.
sense. Makes
Yeah,
sense.
agreed.
Maybe at least extend it until next meeting and then maybe we can get some guidance from Explorer and others as to.
Yeah, they do something, they do a very special thing for Halloween, so it'd be nice to have in that space, they could do all types of a little cornfield and things like that, so through Halloween or after Halloween?
I think so, that's it. I think so.
Okay.
Listen, all right, great.
What's that?
November first one?
Maybe yeah, whatever weekend is
Whatever weekend falls.
past that, right? So if, I don't know when Halloween is, if it's on a Wednesday, then extend it past that weekend, that Monday over.
Okay.
So whatever we have to do to get that done. Also too, is that since this is our last meeting in September, before our next meeting, I believe, Rocktoberfest is coming up, guys. 30 live bands, a beer garden, food and shopping, kids zone. They've raised $3.2 million in the last 20 years. It's all for the Milburn Education Foundation, and these are the programs that they support, everything outside of the BOE. They support, I think it's 100%, Richie, right? The world champion robotics team, the mill. They're just so much great use for that money that comes out. So everybody tell your neighbor, grab a friend, go down there on September 14th. And enjoy the festivities. They're actually this year they're doing 52 interns, young interns from the high school to participate and get a little resume filler. So I think it's fantastic for those guys to get to see how this event is planned. And it's such a great event, and it's a lot of organization behind it. So I'm really going to push that hard for everyone to go out there.
Thank you. And just finally, I just on the storm last week, storm preparation and response, I just wanted to recognize and thank everyone involved for their outstanding job during the recent storm preparation and response. Our business administrator, Alex McDonald, Chief Gilfetter, and the entire police force, and Chief Echeverria, and the firefighters, our superintendent of public works, Mr. Doty, and all of the DPW, and of course JCP&L for their quick response. In the recent, I guess, 2 storms, when I've been out with Chief Echeverria and Alex, and I've seen my share of pump stations and how they work. So I just wanted to just let everybody know how much I appreciate all of the hard work that you guys do. And those were my reports.
You know, quite frankly, the extension, because it's done by ordinance, will need to be an amended ordinance or a new ordinance to continue that extension, but we'll look through that and make sure, like, I understand there's consensus from the township committee, so we're gonna work on whatever mechanism we need to put forward to make that happen. As far as my reports, I have a few. One is New Jersey American Water. Many residents today received a message from the township. I think everybody also received their packets from New Jersey American Water. What is happening is that New Jersey American Water is mandated by the state of New Jersey to change out all lead or galvanized service lines. And now that they've done a lot of that work in the township, and just a kudos to the township committee for having the foresight to waive fees for that type of work, which got them in our town fastest and got that work done very quickly here in the street. Now they need to move to the residential service line, and so a lot of those materials are unknown to them, whether it's lead or whether it's galvanized or whether it's neither of those. So they have brought on a company, CD Smith, to do a canvassing exercise, which they will go to those 4,100 homes that they do not know what that service line from the curb to your home is made of. They would like to do an inspection. There's also other ways that residents can report what that service line may be made of, or send pictures and allow them to inspect it. So in some instances they will be knocking on doors. In some instances you can set up an inspection online. But just wanted residents to be aware of that. That's starting next week. And that this is very much a necessity, because if they do find that the service line from the curb to the home is lead or galvanized, then they are responsible for replacing it and working with the homeowner to do so. We are helping and communicating it, although we have nothing to do with the work or the requirement to do so. But we are helping to communicate it. Just wanted to let everybody know about
A question on that, so if it has to be replaced, who pays for that?
it. New Jersey American Water.
Because they always send that service line maintenance thing that they want you to sign up for.
Yep.
And they say that the service line is the homeowner's responsibility, so.
It is unless it's been mandated by the state.
Exactly, so
Letter
that's why I wanted, that's why I wanted you to make that clear.
Yes.
Also too, being with Raquel DePerna on all the neighborhood watches, the different neighborhood watches, I think it would be prudent to have whoever's coming to the door to be well marked or have ID or.
Their
blue-
vehicle will be marked, they will have IDs, and they also will have vests that indicate that they're from
Fantastic.
CC Smith.
Okay.
Residents that want to avoid having someone come into their home, you can just go right online. They ask you to take specific pictures of where the line comes in, and you can submit that. So, if you don't want to have to deal with someone coming in to do an inspection, you can go to the website and take care of it there.
Correct. Yep. In addition, our 2024 road reconstruction improvements have started. In particular, we have completed curb up on Fairfield Terrace and Martindale. We have started metal work and work on Church, Ocean, Mechanic, and Orchard. In addition, there's quite a list of streets this year that are getting done. But in particular, milling and paving of the Washington section is slated to be completed before the start of school. And then we will be beyond the summer in some of these other areas, but it'll be less impactful to school traffic and things like that. But we want to make sure that we get down into that area before the start of school. In addition, PSE&G has started their restoration of various areas that what they've already done in the Washington section, but they are now in the Beechcrofts doing mill and pave. They're also milling and pave in Fairfield Terrace and Martindale, Old Hollow, and we'll be completing their restoration of Baltusrol and Elmwood. And those for the time being, just so, because I know this usually ends up in some phone calls, but those will be curb to center line where they've been impacted. And then the township is obviously already starting to evaluate its 2025 program, and we'll be looking at those streets that were impacted by PSE&G, as well as what we anticipate PSE&G impacting further, which is likely to happen. They've already contacted us about some additional work that needs to be done up in the Long Hill, Tioga, Cuyahoga area of town. So I think that's all I have.
Do you want to talk about Lackawanna, or was that a one-day thing?
That was a one-day thing. We're done. The pedestrian signal has been put into Lackawanna Place for those crossing from the library or Lot 9 to the train station, or the parking garage to the train station. That is a push button and a motion activated pedestrian activation signal. It has advanced warning on both sides of the underpass, so that those cars coming up from Essex Street can know that there is a pedestrian in the crosswalk on the other side of that underpass. So that has been completed today.
Yeah, and just a friendly reminder, that cross section of Milburn and Wyoming, still, I know it's a county road, but if we can continue to apply pressure to the county to get that resolved, it'd be fantastic.
Okay, so thank you, Mayor. So for those who might not know who I am, my name is Richard Birch. I'm an attorney at the law firm Vansanelli Cantor Rivera. I'm filling in for Mr. Cantor tonight, who's the township attorney and also the Fair Share Housing Council for Milburn. Just to give a little bit of a backstory, we were in court on July 10th, where the court adopted the recommendations of the special master, which were to move forward with the 9 Main Street site, including adopting the redevelopment agreement and a pilot agreement with RPM. That was memorialized by a court order on July 31st. What I could say is that the township is currently evaluating all its options. We're still discussing amongst the committee, and as far as any decisions, nothing's been determine yet, but probably at the next meeting, there'll be a better update to provide, but that's what's happened since the last meeting. And if any of the township committee has any questions for me, I can answer.
Thank you. Public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Millburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you're attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue or debate or to debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open the public comment period. We'll start in the room.
Hello, I'm Adarka Stockert, and I'm a 30-year resident of the Wyoming section. And I wanted to address 2 things. One was the invasive species that you asked about. And you asked why would people plant invasive species? So I wanted to explain that Home Depot sells invasive species. We also have, for example, barberry, which is an invasive species in our parks and our public lands, as well very commonly in households, because it's a very cheap plant and it's readily available at Home Depot. On my street, there is a planting of purple loosestrife. I don't know if you know what that is, but I'll tell you because I just happened to go to the Adirondacks, and the entire thruway is covered in purple loosestrife from like Albany up to like Lake Placid, because it's so invasive. One little plant in a year or 2 becomes a field of purple loosestrife. And when you have it taking over that area, our native species can't live there because it spreads more readily, more easily. It loves wet feet. So on my street, there's actually purple loosestrife that has escaped from someone's garden and is now growing in the crack between the curb and the road, which is public land, right? So hopefully we can take care of that before it ends up in our river, because when it ends up in a river, it'll be full of this weedy purple, very pretty plant, by the way, which is why people plant it and buy it at Home Depot and put it in their gardens. But I live on Norwood Terrace, which goes straight down to the east branch of the Rahway River. And if we allow it to continue, it'll fill our waterway and contribute to further problems when we have flooding issues. So that was the one. Second item, I'm probably running out of time. In my neighborhood in Lower Wyoming, a lot of trees were replaced. I think it was about 2-3 years ago. I think 100% of them were non-native. In fact, most of them were Japanese lilac. And there aren't any places, actually, a lot of places available to plant natives. So our neighborhood probably, I'm just going to guess, is probably around 60 to 70% non-native already. If you lower from 70 to 50 as a goal, what's going to happen is you're still going to have a vast majority of our trees to be non-native. So that's why the goal is important, 70%.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Radhika Iyengar. I'm the resident of 439 Wyoming Avenue. This is a very personal experience I wanted to share regarding native plants. My husband and I came to Melbourne in 2015. Like all first-time homeowners, we wanted our house to look the best. So we invested in a sprawling lawn with expensive grass seeds and a sprinkler system. We maintained shiny grass, which involved us to put in all sorts of chemicals. Our visit to Home Depot increased and our pockets became lighter. But the house had to be maintained with the shiny new grass. With the summer heat increasing every year, we had to water more, and somewhere down the line, our water system also gave way. Just a year before COVID, a current Environmental Commission member and my friend Vanita Gangwal came to visit me with the milkweed. I planted it and saw the transformation with my own eyes. Butterflies and bees started to hover around it. My kids and I were busy counting the monarch butterflies and caterpillars. COVID years passed by me learning a lot of names of birds and observing the milkweed ecosystem. And then the green team co-chair, Rene Paparian, held a native plant sale during those years, and I got a bunch more of native plants for my yard. I saw more bees and butterflies in my yard. Meanwhile, for my husband and I, the fascination for the shiny green grass, which only he and I hovered around and not the bees, had died down. Also, because our pockets were getting empty and a lot of water was being wasted, while all our biodiversity action was in our backyard with the milkweed and the black-eyed Susan and mountain mints and the obedient plants having a lot of action around them. They required little watering and no fertilizer, and the best thing is that the plants kept coming back and back again and again with more flowers each year. We saw beautiful monarch butterflies in my yard, and I started to read about dwindling monarch population and how I can help. I saw glimpses of monarch restoration efforts in town like the Whittier Triangle, the patch near the Melbourne train station. So TC members, I am here to see more of this transformation town-wide. Monarchs should be everywhere, not just in patches here or there. Today you have the decision in your hands whether you want the shiny new grass or the native plant to support more biodiversity in town. Thank you.
Yay.
Okay.
So the monarch butterflies, they're the verge of extinction, which is why we should plant more milkweeds, which they thrive on. So there's more biodiversity and monarch butterflies.
Thank you.
Native plants are good because they support monarch butterflies, and I love monarch butterflies.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Leela Kalyanpur, and I'm a resident of Short Hills. Today, I'm here to talk in support of the native plant resolution. Many people may ask, why are native plants important? Well, one reason why native plants are important is because they are necessary for local creatures to live. For example, the milkweed is a host plant for monarch butterflies and the only food for monarch butterfly larvae. Not only butterflies, but pollinators need native plants as well. Native plants provide the needed nectar and pollen to bees. Without native plants, many local species will die. Additionally, native plants also require less overall care, helping conserve our resources, money, and time. Their deep roots allow them to withstand large amounts of time in dry weather, hence requiring little to no watering after they are planted. Finally, native plants are beautiful. They come in various colors, textures, and can look appealing while also protecting the local environment without being invasive. In conclusion, passing the native plants resolution will help native animals thrive, take less resources, money, and time to maintain, and increase biodiversity in Melbourne environment. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Vidya Bindal. I am a rising junior at Newark Academy, but I live in town. I support this ordinance and I strongly urge you guys to support it as well. These native plants are extremely important to our town and climate change as a whole, but again, why might we care about this? Well, we children over here will have to face this impact for the rest of time, essentially. I know that many of you guys might not be here at that time, but we will be, and we will have to, and we will have to bear that impact. So I urge you guys to support this ordinance in the sense that any change that we can make in our town is a change that we can make. Yes, we might not be able to control climate change in the entire world, but in our town we can. And for that, I want to give a shout out to your guys' reusable water bottles. I think that's amazing. So finally, these native plants are able to sequester a lot of carbon. They are acclimated to our environment. They don't require a lot of energy, water. They don't require excess fertilizers or chemicals, meaning that they support micro and macro environments, the birds, the bees, the insects, the deers, everything that you see those can be supported by native plants. So I urge you all to support and pass this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nidhi Thakur. I live in the poet section in town. I'm also a part-time poet, so I'll start with a fiery orange butterfly in flight is a heavenly sight. A still, busy monarch on a milkweed leaf, the earth's sigh of relief. So at the cost of being dramatic, while the monarch butterfly is only symbolic of the beauty that native plants can bring, there's so much more to what native plants can bring. They can support the local ecosystem, which can thus sequester carbon perhaps, but certainly help prevent the flooding, the droughts that climate change is making most of our communities so susceptible to. So this ordinance seems like a no-brainer to me. 70% seems like the best target to pursue at this point. Anything lower than that is again saying, okay, we'll try and we'll see what happens. We've seen that in this past summer, the temperatures across the world and in our town and in New Jersey in particular have shot up like crazy. So I think the time to press the pedal on this is now, and we need to go all out. So 70% seems like a good number. That's the number that we should pursue. And I hope everybody supports this ordinance. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ishan Bharadwaj, and I'm a rising junior at Milburn High School, and I'm a Milburn Eco Ambassador. And as a student, resident, and Eco Ambassador of Milburn, I care deeply about our community, and I'm in full support of the native plant ordinance because it's a critical step to preserving our own local ecosystem and doing our duty to address the broader biodiversity crisis at a local stance. So in 2021, as you guys know, Milburn faced one of its worst disasters, Hurricane Ida, which caused widespread damage and showed our town's vulnerability to extreme weather events like flooding. I remember seeing the water rise in front of my house by the hour, a river slowly forming on Milburn Avenue. And as a middle schooler, I was happy that we didn't have to go to school the next day. But looking back, Ida was horrible. It devastated homes and local businesses, leaving $100 million of damage in its wake. Some businesses haven't even been able to reopen since. Although the Milburn community did not fail to support cleanup, it's not sustainable for the future at all. And since then, we have also noticed more flood warnings and heavier rainfall and flooding with each new storm that comes our way. And it becomes apparent that over the years we have seen conditions deteriorating with our own eyes. Native plants can slowly improve these conditions in many ways. Native plants' deep root systems would reduce flooding like we experienced in Ida because they allow more water to infiltrate the ground, stopping water just staying on the surface and causing flooding. And near flood-prone areas, native plants could even slow down and absorb stormwater. Native plants also act as natural filters, so when runoff from urban areas carry pollutants and head towards local water bodies, the native plants trap and absorb these pollutants, improving water quality and cleaning aquatic ecosystems. Also, native plants with their adapted roots can stabilize soil, especially in erosion-prone areas like slopes. And by implementing them in Milburn, they could maintain the integrity of the soil, but also reduce sedimentation in local rivers and streams that further lead to improved water quality. This is definitely not the end of the many advantages that these native plants have. They have created habitats for local pollinators, birds, and other insects that would make our local ecosystem healthier and diverse. And diverse ecosystems are the most resilient to extreme weather events that we've been facing. And I think because we have seen with our own eyes the environment degrading over the years in many different ways, we have the utmost responsibility of promoting as many native plants as possible throughout our town to create a resilient local environment, and also through this set an example for other communities to follow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello to the Township Committee. My name is Aryan Jain and I'm a junior at Milburn High School. And I want to say that I think that the township committee should take every chance to pass an environmental policy with enthusiasm. Because I believe that environmental policies, they give us a chance to build a more perfect society. A society in which we don't have to travel by car or by plane to national parks, and instead can enjoy the fruits of nature right here at home, where we are not separated from but integrated with nature. Because for the past 200 to 300 years, our society has focused on pushing nature out. That has led to repercussions because nature improves their soil quality. Native plants improve their soil quality. They prevent flooding. They improve the air that we breathe, and they are the backbone of the ecosystems in which we depend on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Hello, Township Committee. So I don't have a prepared script because I thought we were coming here to defend a native plant resolution. But I really, first of all, want to thank all of you for really taking the next step forward here. So what I would like to utilize this time to say something more than just native plants. What I do want to say, really echoing everything that everybody has said here, especially looking at all the kids in this room, that this is really a very small first step that we are talking about. We are way behind the curve. I'm not just talking about Millburn. Collectively, our generation is way behind the curve in really facing up to the challenge of, and I am going to use this word, climate change. I know last time I uttered those words in this room, I got a collective response from many people here, but it should be the least controversial term. It is just two words, climate and change, and nobody can deny our climate is changing way too rapidly in front of our eyes, and we don't know how to deal with it, right? And just like Mr. Doty said, the American beech tree, now it sounds almost like that we're losing the battle already, and then we're just playing catch up. But if human beings can think that far ahead, that in the event of an extinction event, we want to go and become a multiplanetary species and go to Mars, I'm sure we can look this challenge right here on this earth and face it and do what we can. And I think we are really not doing quite enough. We have lots of people in this town who have been working in their volunteer capacity for years. Renee Paparian and Alan Ingber are the perfect example with the Green Team. We have Millburn Climate Action Group, a lot of volunteers here, the Environmental Commission, but we are all working, putting in so many hours and efforts, but the efforts are just fragmented, and it is not our efforts are not being strategically utilized. So I really urge this committee to create an Office of Sustainability for Millburn, to have a paid officer. I promise you that position will pay for itself with all the grant money that is available from federal government and state government to do the right thing from sustainability perspective. You cannot really leave it to the volunteers' time to pass these policies in this fragmented manner. So really, really appreciate support for a sustainability office for this town. Thank you
so much.
Yeah.
I am reappearing. Renee Paparian, resident. I support what you just said, and I hope that you take it seriously. And I have a card from someone from a sustainability summit who would actually share the job with another municipality that she's working with. So Alex, Mayor, I will share that information with you as you explore the possibility of a sustainability officer or position. But I am actually here to read something from Ellen Ingber because she is working with her daughter on getting the wedding gown for the wedding this weekend. So pretend I'm Ellen. As a 32-year resident of Millburn Township and former co-chair of the Millburn Township Green Team, I strongly support the adoption of the Building Native Habitats Resolution. The township should be a model for its residents by planting as many native habitats as possible. But in addition to serving as a model for the community, the township should be a reflection of the community it represents. With each passing season, I see more and more residents growing native plants in their yards. It is clear that the decision to plant native plants is spreading throughout the township's neighborhoods. Apparently, it is what Millburn Township residents want to see in their yards and would appreciate seeing in more public spaces. I hope that our elected officials have noticed these changes and agree, because with climate change, pesticide use, and loss of habitats, it is time for all of us to help our local species as much as we can to avoid their extinction. With that said, I ask that you please pass a building native habitats ordinance. Thank you for your time. Again, Ellen Ingber.
Thank you. Anyone else before we go online?
Okay, let me go. Dave Cosgrove, resident. Two matters. At the last TC meeting, I had brought up the issue that the town was refusing to allow citizens to see land use applications. And I wanted to know if that's been fixed, where we are on that. And the second is, I want to push you again on the Citizen Fair Share Committee and find out where we are on appointing people to that so we can get that moving. Thank you.
Hi, Diane Eglow, resident. You touched on it, Ben, about the traffic light at Wyoming and Milburn. I'm wondering if we have gotten in touch with Essex County about changing the traffic lights at Milburn and Maine and Essex to be talking beeping traffic lights, really important for safety. Alex, I think it's been 3 years we've been talking about the crosswalk being put in at Ivy and Ridgewood. Is that going to happen before school? There's no sidewalk on the opposite side, and that would be a really good place for a crosswalk. And I think that was supposed to be done. All this talk about trees, and yet we still have no trees all along Milburn Avenue, Upper Milburn Avenue. Tom, you remember when I was on Shade Tree? I talk about this all the time. It's a tree city, and we have no trees. It's hot, it's not attractive. I also I have a hodgepodge of things here. I was at Town Hall Plaza Saturday night. Was that Friday night? Friday night, I saw you guys. It was crowded. And what I said to Ben is that when people go there, it's intentional. It's not like when it was on Main Street, there were like people eating there. And I would really love to put on the record that when Town Hall is renovated, that becomes a permanent closure, a tree-lined park plaza, which would be like an amazing addition to the downtown. Also, when you do Town Hall renovation, which I hope is going to happen, we have individual padded seats to sit on because these pews are just really awful. They look bad and they are uncomfortable. Back to trees, let's talk about trees. Perhaps there could be an ordinance for the planning board for all new construction must plant trees. When Nadaj put up the building across the street, which I think is attractive, why were there not 4 trees put in front of that building? It's a tree desert. It's all concrete. If people think that building's not attractive, imagine if there was 4 trees there, would certainly soften it. Back to trees. I think trees have to be put in the fall. Is there a plan from the Shade Tree and the new forester to have trees slated to be put in the fall? I put something on the SDL about there's 2 new trees on the house at the corner of Whittingham and Ridgewood. I don't know if those are town trees, but they must be a foot away from the curb. So I don't know if the town planted those or the property owner planted them, but I didn't hear back about my SDL inquiry, but they look like that's not in a great spot. Next thing, if it's feasible to keep fighting this 9 Main Street project, if you can stop this, please go back and revisit the plan that would develop all of Essex Street in one contiguous plan with a proper ingress and egress, proper green space. And if you're gonna have to move DPW for millions and millions of dollars, have a really good plan, do it all in one shot and make Milburn really beautiful. Thanks.
Jean Pasternak. I have a bunch of stuff and it's all disorganized. Sorry about that. I just want to say thank you to Renee and all the people here who took time to come and educate us about so many things that many of us really don't know a lot about. And I have to say, the best thing out of this that I see with what Renee's doing with her committee is that there's a process that brings people together. And whether people agree or disagree, things are aired. I admire your bringing Tom to the table, Mayor, to give his side of things. And I think that's what has been missing for so many years. And I'm really pleased to see that that's no longer the case. And there's a lot of good open discussion. So thank you. The other thing I wanted to say is that let's see, Resolution 24-199, the resolution joining other municipalities and the constitutionality of the affordable housing laws in this state. I'm so pleased to see that, and I hope all of you will be supporting that. I think most people in our town would be really happy to see us doing that. I will link to some activity that I've been doing, campaigning with Alex Zaltzman, on his behalf. There's just such strong feedback still about the dump project. I can't tell you how many people, like 100% pretty much. I think out of 100 people we talked to, maybe one might have said, okay, we understand, we're not gonna be able to go for it. Everyone is still very strongly in favor of you guys pushing back. So I hope you'll continue to hear that, as I have been hearing. The other thing is on the back of the question about committees being established. Could somebody just give an update? There were so many different ones that were being talked about, citizens advisory committees. I know for sure the affordable housing, but also what about, there was one on budget. There were just a bunch of them. Now I'm completely lost as to where they stand. I think those are important, and it would be good to have an update as to where those things stand. Let's see, just on the 2025 road plan, I just want to put a pitch in for Coniston. It is a mess. There's a lot of traffic there because of that light that was put in on Hobart and White Oak Ridge. So it just seems to be deteriorating more and more, and I hope somebody will take a look. I think, Tom, actually you were going to go have a look, so thank you. There's something else here, but where is it? I think I learned from Ben that we have a fairly large surplus, and I just wondered, what is that and why is it so big? And why do we need to keep it at that size of like something like 18 million? Okay, thank you.
Anyone else before we go? Okay, thank you. Good evening.
Hello.
There you are.
Hi, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Antonio Braca, township member, township. I lived here all my life. Just had a couple quick questions for Alex about the lead. So I take care of a lot of stuff for my dad, and he was gotten this township letter saying I had to use LEW for environmental services. They came yesterday, actually. It cost $278. And I thought you said during the meeting tonight that everything was going to be taken care of by somebody. So that was just one of my questions. Question number two is, you said that I know the streets are getting paid before the school year. Just curious to see where you said that metal work has begun on certain streets. I live on Mechanic Street. I haven't seen anything yet at all. And then I agree with Miss Eglo for a couple things. Streets, trees on the streets for shaded sidewalks would be nice. The Town Hall Plaza would remain permanent after Town Hall shifts to East Willow. And the one last point I had was appreciate everybody speaking out about the trees and learning about all the butterflies and the native plants and all that stuff. But I think it's kind of my question is, look at this shiny thing over here while we build 53 other condos here, because you're taking away places that we could put certain native plants. So I guess that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Sarah Sherman, resident. I have a couple of questions about Resolution 24199. So in doing some homework on that, I understand that Mayor Gasali of Montvale has invited 100 communities to join him in this challenge to affordable housing guidelines. I understand what the cost that's being requested per year for this year and the next. But what I'm curious about is whether we know at this point, maybe you can't tell us until September, how many other communities are joining in this? And if other communities join in this, will this lower the cost of participation? And at what point will we have a little more detail on this? As I understand it, Mayor Gasali is estimating this will cost something like $1.5 million. And this could go on for some time. I believe Montvale was previously involved in an effort with a number of other communities that failed. I don't know that it was similar to this one, but I think we'd like to know a little more detail about this, and perhaps that'll be provided later, or perhaps we could find out at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, okay, good. So I will now close public comment.
No, just, I really don't have any comments, just kudos to all the young people who came out. It's an inspiration to see the passion and how it's developing for the environment and the local plant species, as well as it's just very, very, very encouraging. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I'll second that, even though I won't be here in all the trees. And on a more serious note, to Mr. Cosgrove, in fact, Mr. McDonald and I talked about the move to make the land use documents public even while they're still in draft. So that effort is moving ahead. We had some clarification today, making sure that people understand that what they're getting. You know, they get something today, it could be different tomorrow. That needs to be made clear. But that effort is still alive and hopefully will be implemented as soon as possible.
Sure. Mr. Cosgrove, I agree with you. I think that residents should have greater access to the draft documents when it comes to building applications, et cetera. So I stand with Michael in support of that. Second, the Affordable Housing Committee, I think our position has always been that we planned on filling that committee in the fall when people were back. So look forward to that in the coming meetings. I'd like to thank all of those that came out in favor of the native plant resolution. It's always great to see people come out and stand for something. A lot of times people come out when they want to speak out against something or when they have a complaint, but it's always great to have people speak in support of something, especially something that I think will be beneficial to the town as a whole. So thank you to all those that came out. Let's see. Yes. Ms. Pasternak, the other advisory committees, you specifically mentioned the budget one. I think where we had left it is that Mr. McDonald was going to work with the CFO and put together a long-term capital plan, and that was going to be worked on over the summer, and then we would have an update on that in the fall. And then based on what we think of that, how complete it is, et cetera, then we can evaluate whether it's necessary to have an additional committee or not. It may not be necessary. So that is being worked on. And Ms. Sherman, it's my understanding, I think there's about 25 other towns at this point that have indicated they're going to be signing on. And I do believe that the prior litigation that a number of towns were involved with, that was about a different aspect of the prior affordable housing laws. So this is targeted for this round, and specifically what's going on is there's about 60 towns in New Jersey that are completely exempt from affordable housing requirements. These include Jersey City, Hoboken, Montclair of all places, right? They're exempt. So it just seems like there's a lot of communities that aren't doing their fair share. And if we're trying to be fair as a state, we should reevaluate that because really all communities should be involved in providing affordable housing. And also I think that will help lower the thresholds for all the other towns, if all the towns shoulder their portion of the burden. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. I just also want to thank all the young people that came out tonight. Between tonight and the high schoolers we saw this morning, these young people truly care about this town, and it's great to see, just as part of the community. So, Mr. McDonald.
Just to answer a few questions that have been asked. One to Mr. Bracca's question. The two things I think that you were discussing are two separate things. One is a lead-based paint inspection on rental properties in the township that is required by the state of New Jersey. And that was passed down to the municipalities to implement. What I was discussing earlier in my reports was lead line service for your water into the home, which is something that will be taken care of by New Jersey American Water should they find that it is lead or galvanized pipe going into the home. To answer some of Ms. Eglo's questions, one, I think you had asked.
Sorry.
No worries. To answer your question, I think at a previous meeting, you had stepped out when I had answered about Ridgewood and Ivy. Ridgewood and Ivy is on our ADA accessibility list for curb ramps this year. We're anticipating getting a $70,000 grant through the CDBG. It will be installed with that money. That includes also curb ramps in the Glenwood area. And so it is very much on our minds, and we will very much be done, but we are awaiting that grant award. In terms of the light activation or sound, and I've already had a discussion with our police department to look into and speak to General Electric, who is our signal vendor, to look into our lights, Rector and Main, Brookside and Old Short. So that we can address those, we will also be reaching out to the county to see what their appetite is for putting those improvements on the traffic signals. We are a Tree City, Tree City. That is because, and I just don't want this to be misconstrued, we do have 8,000 trees that we manage and maintain, plant, and replant or whatever it may be. So I understand that there are at times sentiment that we don't have trees in the right places, and that's fine and that's great, and we will continue to strive towards putting trees in various places. We've had a discussion with the forester about some additional locations. It's not going to be automatically sprout up as a tree lined street, but we are looking at additional locations in the downtown as well as Upper Milburn Avenue. But there's a lot in terms of what the municipality maintains for for trees. We have 4, actually 3 now. We're staffed for 4 shade tree individuals as well as a forester that manage those 8,000 street trees. So we'll be working on that as well. And that relates to your SDL complaint a little bit. I believe those are town trees, correct, Tom? Down on Greenwood. Or Whittingham, yeah. Yes. Ms. Pasternak asked a question about the surplus, and I just want to sort of, it's sort of how we state things, because we do have a healthy surplus. However, $8 million of that surplus is at work every year in your budget. And so what that leaves us with is a surplus that is well within the 10 to 15% range that is required by best practice, as well as AAA rating for our debt service.
Yeah, and Alex, I think this was under the discussion. I spent a day, one of my Saturdays where I could have been golfing, playing at a municipal finance course owned by the state of New Jersey, and it was illuminating in terms of that. I think it came up in a discussion of how do we spend money in this town and give the necessities that people expect for the taxes that they pay in terms of improvements, and those improvements can consist of the Bauer Center, Giro Park, community center, things like that, and how we invest in the community today, because people are putting money in and want to see the benefits of living in such a nice town. We don't want to live in squalor. We love the restaurants. We love downtown. And we want to just improve it. So it's like, I think we have a debt capacity of $240 million based on our rent rolls and such. And we'll probably won't keep our AAA credit, but putting money to work for the young people who are going to be here after we're all gone. Keeping that same analogy, but it's how do we improve the town for the betterment of everyone here?
Yeah, and I think, and as we've explained in our budget sessions, it's also, there's the philosophy of having the financial flexibility that any one particular thing that impacts the municipality on the expense side doesn't necessarily impact the residents on the tax side, and being able to have that financial flexibility, does require an adequate surplus, a healthy surplus, that is within range of what is considered best practice for municipalities. We have a lot of, there's a lot of other communities that don't necessarily have that ability. And so we continue to strive toward that philosophy of being financially prudent by having that. And I've heard your plug on Coniston, and I think that is, and just to Mr. Cosgrove and Committeeman Cohen's point, I just also want to be very clear that, Mr. Cosgrove came up and said that we're not allowing people to have access to this stuff. It has always been the practice of the township that draft documents are not released. I know that there's been a commitment by this committee to allow for draft land use documents to be released and provided to those that may be interested in it. Again, and I had mentioned this to Committeeman Cohen, I think just making sure that we have the disclaimers and the caveats that people understand that these are draft documents, that they will change, that we are not going to be able to answer questions for people because we have not yet deemed that application complete. Once that application is deemed complete, that means it's been reviewed, that there's nothing being asked of that applicant to further that application or make it something that can then be put to the land use boards and scheduled. So we are going to be creating a space on the website. It is not going to be something necessarily that we're pushing out, but that's something that people that are interested in those land use applications that may be available, they can always go there and check.
No, Mayor, thank you.
Okay, consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-186 through 24-1898, which are listed on the consent agenda? May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Curtis? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakansky?
Yes.
Mr. Sawyer?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-199? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-199? May I have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamanni?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-200? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-200?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamanni?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeeman Stoller, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2683-24.
Thank you. I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2683-24. It's a capital ordinance of the Township of Milburn in the County of Essex, New Jersey, authorizing the making of various improvements in, by, and for the parking utility of the township, appropriating therefore the sum of $200,000 and providing that such sum so appropriated shall be raised from the Parking Utility Capital Improvement Fund. Quick overview.
Yeah, I'll provide an explanation. So the majority of this capital ordinance is going to be used to replace parking infrastructure in the pay stations. We have a lot of old pay stations. A lot of our pay stations were replaced after Ida, and they were damaged, and they were claimed to insurance, and they were replaced, but we still have a lot of aging out pay stations. I think the municipality has 72 total. So we're replacing some pay stations. We also now need to hardwire some pay stations as a result of the metropolitan and the lack of sun being able to power the solar power over there. So we are hardwiring some of those. That will be included in this capital expense, as well as we're putting a shelter in lot 4, which is the one behind the Haagen-Dazs building. So that pay station does not get cooked by the sun each day, actually too much sun there. So we're putting a shelter over that. And so this ordinance is going to pay for those improvements. And this just to be clear, this is not debt, this is capital cash from the parking utility.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamanni?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2684-24. I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2684-24, an ordinance of the Township of Milburn, County of Essex, accepting drainage easements over various properties in the township and authorizing the execution of easement agreements. This is Greenwood and Township. Do you want to go with?
Yeah, I can provide a little detail. This is a project, a drainage project similar to projects that we did last year, being advanced by both the Flood Mitigation Committee as well as the Township Committee to approve the drainage between Greenwood and Ridgewood. And we are acquiring easements from approximately 10 locations to make that project a possibility. Currently, we have 8 of those easements signed, and we will have obviously all 10 by the time that the final reading takes place. But that is the current status of that project.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, September 17th, 2024. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamanni?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeewoman Prupus, you're scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2685-24.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2685-24. An ordinance of the Township of Milburn, County of Essex, authorizing the Township of Milburn to execute an agreement to purchase and sale of property with Big Town Lighthouse for 20 Brookside Drive, Milburn, New Jersey, 07004. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, of the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamanni?
No.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeeman Cohen, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2681-24.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2681-24, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinance of the Township of Milburn, Chapter 4, General Leasing. The purpose of the following amendments is to make necessary changes and safeguards to the township's canvassers, solicitors, transient merchants, and peddlers. These changes include increased fees for permits, increased time for staff to review and issue permits, the ability to perform appropriate background checks. The ordinance amendments will also decrease the time that an issued permit is valid from 1 year to 6 months. These changes will continue to allow the practice of canvassing and solicitation and will improve the health, safety, and welfare of the township's residents. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open.
I move that the public hearing be closed and that the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamanni?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeeman Stoll, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2682-24.
Great, thank you. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2682-24, ordinance authorizing submission of a question for the election of a charter commission under the Faulkner Act, NJSA 40:698-1 in the 2025 general election. Tonight is the time for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with the law.
I declare the hearing open.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yeah, I would just like to say that Mayor Romano and I had a very productive meeting with Mr. Morreale about this topic, and he helped assuage some of my concerns. However, there's no guarantee that the Charter Commission will be, when it passes, and I know it will tonight, when the people elected, it won't necessarily be 5 people as sincere as Mr. Morreale who got elected to this commission. So for that reason, I have to vote no.
Ms. Purvis? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamanni?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Town hall renovations. Mr. McDonough.
So I wanted to take this time to discuss with the township committee about the next steps as it relates to the renovation of this building. We have had a public information session, obviously individual meetings with the township committee. We had a presentation at the township committee. This information has been on the township's website for some time. And so at this point, we are just looking for a direction in terms of where we want to go with town hall renovation. One of the things that would be necessary is to first and foremost agree on the scope, to agree on the approximate timetable, which at this point, if it were decided that we would move forward with it, it would be the summer of 2025 that construction would likely begin. The budget, one of the issues, and if I'm making a plug to do this, is that one of the issues that we're running into, is that the expense to do this is only going to continue to increase as construction cost inflation. Some of that may wax and wane, but it will only, it only goes up over the long term. We're already seeing some of this, some inflationary impacts as we've, had this process going on since the end of 2023 or 2022. I'm sorry. I'm just looking for again consensus on the scope that it will be the renovation of this building as presented with the addition of the new committee room, court, and additional office space with this safe storage facility. And that then we can work toward financing of that project. Right now, it is estimated to be at the tune of about $12.5 million. I would anticipate that any authorization would be a bit more than that, just to provide for soft costs and things like that. But again, just looking for a discussion with the committee and whether we can advance this project forward.
I have some thoughts. So this is an example of a infrastructure project that our town absolutely should do. Paper mill, we shouldn't have, but this, we actually should, because the longer we go with this building, the more it's gonna cost to maintain. It has no insulation, in some cases literally falling down, and the space just doesn't work for our municipal workers. Also, if we go ahead with the plan and move the municipal court, that will free up valuable space at the police department. So really we're solving two problems at once. And I think Mr. McDonald is absolutely right. This is a project that probably should have been done 10 years ago, and it would have been a lot less expensive to do it 10 years ago. I mean, even if we did it 5 years ago, it would have been significantly less. So I think that now is as good a time as any, and we need to stop delaying. And while I understand $12 million seems like a lot, to put that in perspective, you just gave $7 million to the paper mill. So, I think something that is going to be in town and is going to be a building used by the town and the municipality for the next 100 years is something we should invest in.
I think you're just asking for an authorization, and I'm okay with that. I just think that as we move ahead with this, I would just, as we discussed, I would just like to see some alternatives. I mean, from the presentation that we've seen, it's kind of, to me, it's kind of been like that, well, here's the building, I hope you like it. And I would really prefer to see some alternatives, that we have some opportunity, and they'll all cost different amounts of money, that we have some opportunity to make those decisions. I mean, we've been given one design, and I'd like to see, I'm not saying to spend a ton of money making, 16 different designs, but I would like to see some alternatives or some explanation of possible tweaks as we go forward.
Yeah, I think just to touch on that point, there are certainly, some things that we can address. Again, we're looking more at the overall scope, but if we were to say, we can soften the inside by having a little bit less committee room so that we can create a little bit more open space, as well as, perhaps adding additional, different design to the outside of the committee room, things like that. I think we can work within the framework. We're just looking at the overall scope of the project.
The architect, he spoke to everyone who works in this building, right? It
Correct.
wasn't like that he just came up with
Right. Of course, yes, no,
an
absolutely,
idea.
yeah.
So there was a lot
There-
of
there-
thought put into that, like discussion around what was needed.
Correct.
My one concern is I just sort of want to hold it up, but that's my concern about that process. Seems as that process has already taken place, those discussions maybe not by five of us, because we don't work in this building. So I don't know. I guess I don't know what options other.
I think, community room improvements, these are minor tweaks. These may be some aesthetic tweaks to the outside of the building. In particular, what we haven't seen, and I don't think that is in terms of the front of this building, what improvements are we going to make to the pathways so that they're more accessible? That there's some repair on the historic facade, the historic pillars and facade out there. What are those things? It will not be major in nature by any means. Nothing that is going to hold this up. Trust me. We are going to be looking at a timeline that if we want to start construction in 2025, we also then, in conjunction with any of that exercise, have to start moving from this building to 22 East Willow, which is going to take time, effort, and we need to address that as well.
Yeah, looking at the, it's an embarrassment for anyone to not support the paper mill playhouse and understand the continuing, understanding the economics of it. We didn't give him 7 million, he's gaslighting, everyone's getting gaslighted. We're getting $2.2 million for the Brookside, we're getting 1.2 million on the books of cash for repairs anyway. We have a ton of economic growth from the paper mill playhouse. So I think it's a false equivalent. That being said, you heard me earlier, this community deserves a new town hall. You guys are living in squalor here, and I'm 100% behind a new town hall. Yes, please move forward.
There you go.
Fantastic. Thank you all very much.
Okay, final public comment. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. A reminder that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session.
Hi, Jay Morelli, resident. A bunch of kudos. First on the Town Hall Plaza. I think the extension is great. It's just a fabulous environment. So to everyone involved in putting that together, it's great. And I like Diane's thought to turn it into a permanent park, maybe take some of that parking lot across the street. It's a fabulous site, and it's brought, you see more children, more families, more of everything there. It's great. So kudos to all. Alex, thanks for the Paul Tisserall update. Great. And kudos on the land use changes to let people register to get notifications. As anybody who's ever been involved in a land use dispute knows, if you receive a notice and you've got 10 days to try to understand what's happening and to try to impact or change or modify, it's impossible. You could be out of town for 2 weeks and the change could get passed and you not even know about it, and they're constructing next door to you. It's crazy. So kudos to Mr. Cosgrove for bringing this forward, and kudos to Alex and company for moving forward with this. I think that's incredibly important. And I support the town hall renovations. I've been in many town halls across the state as part of some of the advocacy work I do. And I can tell you unequivocally, this is perhaps one of the lower rung establishments in the state. And it is a bit of an embarrassment. So Deputy Mayor, everyone, I please move forward as quickly as possible with this. And then finally, of course, kudos on passing the Charter Commission study. I think it's incredibly important that from time to time you take a step back and you take a look at the big picture and you say, can we do things better? And maybe after looking at it, you realize, no, we're actually doing okay. But I think it's important from time to time just to step back and look and do a big assessment like will occur during the Charter Study Commission work, and just see if we can do things better and be better stewards of the taxes that are paid to us, paid to the township by residents. So thank you for that.
Hi, Diane Eglow. So just a question, why is the ordinance 268524 for the paper mill being pushed up to September 3rd and the other two ordinance introductions, second read, public hearing September 17th? And I agree with Ben, I agree with Frank, I all see different things, but Michael, to your point, you didn't ask for the paper mills to have a second rendition of what they were doing, and you gave them $7 million. I've been pretty vocal that I think that wasn't a good deal for the town, but it's done, I think. I mean, people ask me if that bond has been released. I don't know. So maybe we could just clarify that for the town, that it's a done deal and people should stop asking, because Mr. Stotts, you're getting your money. We didn't have any say on your fancy atrium or whatever it is you're planning. So I'm sorry to be snarky, but I am. And I'm glad you, Alex, you know me pretty well. And Tara, you're funny. You're a woman of few words, but when you speak, it's always very poignant and important. I'm glad Ridgewood Road and Greenwood is going to have their flood drainage put in. That's really important. We got really lucky last week. And that's it. So thank you. When I left sitting up there, the only thing that happened in my 6 years was you got new chairs. Seriously. And I think that the last thing I said was when I was my goodbye speech was that you all, the people who work here really deserve a great place to work because you all work so hard. So I really hope this happens next summer. Thank you again. Good night. Thank you.
Hi, Richie Cyber, resident. I just want to agree with Frank about the fair share housing and the allocation of affordable housing cities throughout the state. So I just want to say that this needs to be fought right to the Supreme Court, and we should win it about what we do with our land and where we want to build and who's going to live there. And that's what Milburn does. They're leaders. I moved to this town because this town is made up of the best people in what they do. That was my first question. Why is Milburn Short Hills so great? Because the people that live here are the best in their fields. That's what they are. And we have a lot of smart people in this town. And as Jean said earlier, she went to the pool and asked people at the town pool, what do they think about building on the DPW site? Nobody wanted it, right? Nobody wants it. Ben and Frank ran. Nobody wants it. And then we have some people that want to know, how much is it going to cost? If you have ever hired a lawyer in your life and asked him that question, what do you think it's going to cost? He'll never tell you that. He'll tell you what the deposit's going to be. But how can he tell you what it's going to cost? How does he possibly know how long it's going to take? Who he has to subpoena? All the depositions. It's a lot of work involved. But I say, take it to the Supreme Court. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I still have more. Jean Pasternak. So I just want to say, as far as the town hall renovation, okay, an architect was hired. He obviously is a professional. He did his homework and he's offering his best case scenario. I'm a daughter of an architect, a sister of an architect. There are many architects in our family, and I can tell you, I remember my dad saying this so many times that his clients, you know, it was like the architect is sort of at the lowest rung of the ladder. They know what they're doing. They have a lot of education, and I think you should trust that architect's judgment, Michael. I'd also like to ask you, Alex, about the, and thanks for all the support from the whole township committee about expanding our 9/11 memorial to include survivors. I hope there's something that's, I know there's not going to be a meeting before then, but if there's anything that we can do to recognize that, I'm willing to help or put you in touch with people who could do that. The other question, these are some of Mr. Feld's questions that he asked me to ask about. What is the status of the retention of special counsel to investigate the private citizen municipal criminal complaint filed by our former mayor? Let's see. Will residents be provided an opportunity to ask our auditors questions about the 2023 audit? What is the status of the 2024 Main Street, New Jersey application? What steps is the township taking to update its list of registered voters? Didn't say that, it said something much worse. And then will the township disclose and post all post-August 17th, 21 affordable housing hearing transcripts in its actual and constructive possession, beginning with September 17th 2021 virtual case management conference? And let's see, what portion of the community is located within a 100-year floodplain? And when will the township disclose the results of its promised apartment unit assessment and inventory? Okay, last thing I wanted to say about paper mill is I really would like to take the emotion out of it and say that there were a number of really, as Rich pointed out, very intelligent people, pillars of this community that had come before you, presented their numbers, their analysis. And I don't think it's an embarrassment at all. I think it shows that our community cares, that people do take things seriously. Spending $7 million is a big number, given all the priorities that we've heard about tonight and previously. And I think that, I hope that you will listen further to what was presented to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room?
Hi, Debbie Frank, Milburn resident. About the affordable housing thing, I would hope that that after this one meeting, I would really hope that you would take a very cold eye as to your process going forward to see whether or not there is an actual path to turning this over or not. Because first of all, you're dealing with a lot of history here. So it's not as though everybody here could have had a very pure heart when it came to coming up with alternatives for where to put this. But you also have the history, and the history has been interpreted as being resistant for a very long time to any sort of affordable housing. That is going to, cannot help but inform how it is looked at by a judge, by the legal system. It's part of the history. So, I mean, I know I'm one of the only people in this room who was absolutely in favor of doing this. I still am. Putting that aside, it is, you have to look at the numbers, you have to look even more at your actual whether or not you can actually win this thing. Because at a certain point, if there is really no plausible, probable path to doing this, what it ends up being is an expensive temper tantrum. So I'm just saying, take a look at it. Obviously, we're not gonna, out here, we're not gonna see all the things that go into making this decision. But I think that you really have to look at it that way. A couple of other just kind of things on the side. Regardless of what happens with 9 Main Street, it doesn't mean that you can't take, say, the Rimbach area and put up what you're talking about, an affordable housing workforce thing. You could still do that. This one does not preclude the other. And the last thing, when you are, I would be very, very careful of your language here, considering the history, considering how the judge has looked at the pleadings so far. I think you should really be very, very careful about using negatively loaded terms like tenement. It does you no good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. I didn't intend to speak tonight, but the previous speaker, Ms. Frank, with all due respect, when you go into this talking about history and pointing the finger at our town as if we've done something wrong, that's sort of a defeatist attitude. And that's sort of not going to lead us to sort of the point where many residents, I would say probably 80% of residents would want us to be. So when you want to talk about history, we should be very careful with exactly how this history unfolded. So yes, people say Mount Laurel goes back to the 1970s. Sure. How many Mount Laurel cases have happened since then? Mount Laurel 1 was in 1970s. There's Mount Laurel 2, Mount Laurel 3, Mount Laurel 4. What is the exact history? When you say Milburn was reticent in building affordable housing, is that actually true? So on Fair Share Housing Center's own website, before they updated it with all of the riches and money that they get from who knows where, because you can't Oprah them, because they're a third-party nonprofit de facto government organization that's not subject to government transparency and oversight. On their own website, when you looked up Milburn, before they did their whole flashy new website, there was a quote from a former mayor from about 2010. They said, Milburn hasn't built affordable housing because no developers have approached the town to build affordable housing. Now here's a question. If no one comes to you and says, I want to build affordable housing, are you actually trying not to build affordable housing? Is it the role of a local township to go into the development business? It's a theoretical question, it's a philosophical question. But if no one came to you and said, I want to build affordable housing, you never said, no, I don't want to build affordable housing. You basically just said, come give me some proposals to build affordable housing. Maybe I'll say yes, maybe I'll say no. But Milburn did not actually have a history of saying no to affordable housing, as far as I am aware. And as far as the Fair Share Housing Center website, before they updated it, said up to the year 2010. So what exactly changed? Well, Mount Laurel 4 happened in 2015, and that's when all of the affordable housing laws suddenly, changed. But you can't just say and point the finger at Milburn, with all due respect, Ms. Frank, that Milburn didn't build affordable housing for 40 years. Milburn didn't want to build affordable housing for 40 years. The fact of the matter is that Milburn Township is not in the development business, okay? And so if a township chooses not to engage and become a developer and no affordable housing gets built, that doesn't mean that they didn't want affordable housing. It just meant that no opportunities arose organically for such construction. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone online?
Yeah, on iPhone, I think it's Christine Best. She couldn't figure out how to turn her name on. She had texted me a while ago, I think. We won't have a nasty experience like we did for one.
Leave it muted until we see their face, maybe.
Yeah, can we do that?
Can you guys see me?
Oh.
Hold on, sorry. My apologies. Can you see me okay?
Yep.
You can, okay. Can I have a little more time because I missed I sat and waited for public comment and there was some kind of.
You can just continue, please.
Okay, I'll go as quickly as I can, Annette. Thank you. I wanted to just, I wanted to first thank Renee and her team for the amount of effort and amount of time and work they've done, because they've done a bang up job of like coming up with all these great things. And I fully support, the work that they do. But I have some strong opinions that I wanted to share. Particularly, I'm in the middle. And I think in this situation with this new ordinance you guys are talking about, I think being in the middle and playing it safe is a better way to go. Starting at 25%. Because just because other people do things doesn't mean we should do things. It always goes back to like, because somebody wears these kind of sneakers, you should wear these. Because somebody smokes pot, you should smoke pot. So I kind of don't like going that way and making decisions. I feel that Tom Doty's, while I don't always agree with everything he does, his excellence tonight was on full display with his knowledge. And I'm sure Stacey was very involved in helping write that up as well. And I really think that it's very important that they have a massive amount of say and that we bring in additional people that are third party, because I don't think it should be left to a bunch of, and I love the fact that all these cute high schoolers came out and pleaded their case about climate change. It's a wonderful story, but it's a story. It's an anecdote. There's no science. Everything was generalized, okay? And I'm very science oriented, and I am an avid gardener, and I really care about my plants, as you guys know, because I have told everybody about possibly people cutting my native oak trees, which I was shocked that the town didn't care about that. Yet we're talking about all of this. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about is that there's a lot of reasons why everything shouldn't be native. Number one, almost a lot of our native trees are dying right now. I mean, if you look at 24 million ash trees that were dying, the oak is, susceptible to bacterial leaf scorch and oak wilt fungus. and also canker, okay? My neighbor lost their oak next to me, and I lost 2 oaks actually in my front yard. So, and there's a number of other ones that are, subject to disease. And so after I lost my oak trees, I planted a katsura, which is a Japanese tree that's quite exotic, but it is known to be very hardy in the North American climate. And it's not an invasive species. It's a fairly slow grower. So I think people really need to think about that. And also they need to think about the conditions that things are planted in. Sometimes there are trees that are understory trees, and they're planted for the specific purpose of growing up underneath as an understory tree. So like the forest pansy is an example of that, or the redbud trees. So,
Thank you. Ms. Best, you'll have another opportunity because we're gonna discuss it further next month.
No, I can have my 2 3-minute sessions in that because I
No, I'm sorry, I can't.
Why can't
Sorry,
you do that?
I can't.
So you just make up.
I'm sorry, I can't. Anyone else? Does anybody want to respond? Oh, I'm sorry.
You want to start or are you gonna? Okay, good. Gene Pasternak, 100% agree on 9/11 Memorial. I can't think of anything more poignant as it's coming up. Miss Franks, thank you to Dr. Kung for his words. And he kind of stole a little thunder, but what I want to make sure we articulate very well is that this township committee completely supports affordable housing. No one is ducking their affordable housing requirements, et cetera. And I think we've made that completely known to the court. We gave the court 2 lots that were significantly better from a monetary standpoint for residents, from a timing standpoint, and a infrastructure standpoint as well. And they said that those were not better than the site we have here. If anything smells to high heaven, it's that decision. I can sit here and say a lot of things that may get me in trouble, so I'm gonna leave it at that we did the work. We believe in affordable housing. We want affordable housing. We want to move it forward, but we need to do it in a sensible manner that does not threaten the livability of our town. From removing the DPW site to the large amount of financial requirement for that site to other things we've taken into account. We have great professionals in this town. We have great attorneys. We have great CFO. We have great business administrator. We do rely a lot on them to give us the information as we requested and to provide us guidance. And I think everyone is on the same page that when we look at this, the question is, can we afford not to fight it? And I've said that numerous times. Can we afford not to fight it? And what the implications are on our township? So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. So I want to make this abundantly clear. When we say we're fighting it, we're not fighting affordable housing. We're fighting segregated housing. When we say we're going to fight it, we're fighting for the future residents of this community. We're fighting for the existing residents of this community. We should not be building tenements. That's not going to help the individuals. Yeah, I said it, tenements, because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a slum over time. The proper way to do affordable housing is to do it in an integrated manner, where you have people of different socioeconomic backgrounds living amongst one another, and that helps lift up the entire community. All right, if we segregate them, that's going to further marginalize them, and that's not going to help the people that it's supposed to benefit. It's just the wrong thing to do. And our town cannot stand idly by while this happens. We have to fight for what's right, and doing affordable housing the right way is of paramount importance to us in this town. That's why we put together a fantastic alternative proposal. It would have provided affordable housing units and much needed workforce housing units. That's really important. We were actually going to do more than what was required, and we were going to be building housing for a portion of the population that is underserved, right? There is a lack of affordable housing for people that make between 80 and 100%, 20% of the area median income. Those are your policemen, those are your firemen, your nurses. they should have an affordable place to live too. And we as a community wanted to provide that, and yet RPM and the judge and Fair Share Housing are arguing in favor of segregation. So we're gonna continue fighting for what's right, we're gonna continue fighting for what's best for the town, and we're gonna continue fighting for building affordable housing in a responsible manner. Thank you.
No, Mayor, thank you.
Just very briefly. Just to, since it's been brought up in the public, I also let everyone, the attorney has been engaged for the investigation of the complaint that Mr. Feld through Ms. Pasternak asked. As far as Mr. Feld's question about flood zones, I just suggest that anybody who's interested in it, go on the SDL portal. There are map overlays of our zoning, flood zone, sewer system, everything can be found there. And that should satisfy his curiosity. The other thing I just wanted to say is, again, thank you to the Township Committee for having the, for providing the ability for us to move forward with a town hall renovation. I think it is incumbent upon me on behalf of our staff to let you know that you've made a lot of very happy people in particular that work in town hall, and would love to see this building renovated for the future, not only for them working here, but also for those who come after us. And we are all very grateful for you making that decision. So thank you.
We have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.